What do you think Indian football clubs are up to in the summer? How has the pandemic affected the Indian football clubs? Is Yaya Toure joining Odisha? This episode of Kalpanthu Splitscreens features Rohan Sharma, president of Odisha FC, and he's going to give you the answers to all those questions and more. So let's jump straight in. Hello, Rohan, and thanks for talking to us on such a short notice. I know you've got a very busy schedule, but I know you never
It's Sunday.
opportunity to talk about football. You're always there to talk about football.
It's only because it's you, Nevin. That's why. If it was anybody else on a Sunday, I
Absolutely,
wouldn't have.
I'm honored. But before I jump to football, I have to ask you about
Mhm.
something. I saw that interview with
Mhm.
Anand, and you had a lot of sneakers behind you, and a lot.
Yeah,
It was immense. So, what is?
yeah.
Are you like a hoarder of shoes? Do we have another angle
Mm,
that we don't know about?
No, I don't have a good angle right now, but I basically have just 96 pair. I collect sneakers, so I've been collecting sneakers for the last 3-4 years. So I just have a lot of sneakers. So
I can see that.
you can look at if you look at my floor, maybe I don't know if you can see on my floor right here, but
Yeah, I
there's
can.
like still on the
A
floor
lot.
over there. So I have my top ones in my bookshelf kind of thing, and I have like my okay ones on the floor next to my patio kind of thing, and that's how I kind of keep things going. But yeah, I know I'm a big sneakerhead, but I realize in life there are so many people who collect better, like in Dubai and even amongst the other. I think it's honest. Even the ISL owners, like at the time, Ranbir and Abhishek, they had always better sneakers than me. So every time I felt cool wearing them, they would have like a better, rarer sneaker, and so I was like, this sucks. So and now with the pandemic going on, like I don't even buy sneakers anymore. But I haven't bought a sneaker in quite some time. Except I had one custom made because now I just do custom stuff. But I love sneakers, and that's my biggest love. My guilty pleasure is my salary goes on sneakers. As that's my
Absolutely.
big
Just
thing.
like you've been collecting sneakers, you've been collecting a lot of players as well. Uh,
Yeah, gotta catch them all.
yeah, as in a lot of talk about Odisha FC in the summer. A lot of
Yeah,
people think that they're building a very strong B team, or like they've
hopefully.
made a very every position is strong now with at least two Indians capable of at least most positions capable of fighting for a spot. So are you happy with how summer has been going? Is this a part of
Yeah,
the vision?
yeah. I'm glad I heard your podcast with Bharat when you guys were talking over our club signings, and you did pick up on it. And I'm glad someone finally did because people were looking at it as young. You're signing too many young players, and I was like, no, you're not seeing it. Because last year, if you look what happened, what was wrong is after someone like Nanda got injured or Jerry got injured, we didn't have anybody really. Romeo was still not there yet. Bikramjit still wasn't fitting the coach's system, and we didn't have enough players at any position. So it was really top heavy. So when someone get injured, and it was like the whole thing was going out for a toss. So this year, even though they're young, I've signed like a bunch of players. So then there is that depth in the club. So even if Jerry goes out tomorrow, then I have Premjit and Isaac coming in. Or if Nanda gets hurt, I have Samuel playing the inverted winger position on that side. And midfield, I have Toyba and Paul, who I'm really excited for. Center back, I think center back's probably still the weakest position in terms of depth on my team, even though we have Sajid and we have Gaurav and we signed the Sarab. And left back is another, question mark for me. I'm nervous. I mean, we have George, who I'm excited for, and hopefully he does well. And even Hendry, I think he's a really good player, and so I'm excited for him too. And I'm hoping to see that it does work out in the end. I'm very happy because in the end I'm happy with the Indian players and the depth we have. Obviously, do want experience because that was something I was worried about, and that's why I was so vocal about Sandesh coming over to the club because I think if he comes in, then I'm really set for what I have in the team. And
Absolutely.
in the meantime, though, while we're waiting for Sandesh to make up his mind on what he wants to do with his future, I think how we're going to help is making it up by having our foreign players for the season. And I think by having coach and the coaching staff that we have this year, I'm really bullish on our chance. Even Abhijit, who is probably a friend of your website, we've interviewed him. He was telling me the other day, he's like, I really do feel we're going to have a top four club this year. And he's usually more cynical than I am when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I'm hoping for the best. We always are. It's going to be a tough season this year with Mumbai, and we're going to be in Goa, and Goa's coming back with their new reinforcements. And Mumbai has, of course, taken Goa's team, and they've added some more stars. I'm sure they're going to add from CFG's properties. And, of course, ATK and Mohun Bagan is going to be a great squad. So, it's going to be a lot of competition. But one thing I'm hoping is with our young players is we have the youth and the depth, and we have also the energy because these guys are all raring to play. All these kids in the I League are wanting, as you know, these I-League kids want a chance. George is like hungry. You saw, I don't know if you've been seeing this. Maybe I'm talking too long about this, but if you saw Bodo, he's getting like yoked on Instagram. All he's doing is lifting weights and doing all his stuff. He's getting shredded. Look on Instagram. I'm impressed. I mean, I think he's taking it seriously now. He wants to I think his step down from Chennai to Minerva to Kerala's B to now he was nobody even talks about Bodo, and they were talking about him heavily 3 years ago. I think now he's kind of taking it on the shoulder a little bit. Now he's working hard to get to the level that we have at Jerry and all the other kids. So I think that the competition is going to be good. Some re-love iron shopping iron sort of things. So I'm really excited. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely. And the new coach is involved in the whole foreign signing.
Yeah.
Is that delayed?
He's running with the ball on this. Because since he didn't really have as much, because when we interviewed coach, and I don't think we talked after I talked to you guys last, was before we hired him. One thing when we interviewed coaches is we wanted a guy who didn't have a set system, and I have the utmost respect for Coach Kambao. But I felt one thing we did is we had a system. So whenever what happened, if you're playing ATK Mohan Bagan, if we're playing actually, good thing I said Mohan Bagan said ATK. I'm sure the Mohan Bagan fans will like that. Or we played Goa, or we played Bangalore. We had that system no matter what. Hook, bar, crook, we're going to live and die by that system. And so that's why we really did well against the bad teams of the ISL. And we suffered a little bit against the top tier teams of the ISL because they had a better way of playing against us. I wanted a coach who kind of could adapt with what we had on the team. And so he looked at all the players, did the presentation. He had a full, I think, 18 page PowerPoint of how he would involve each player and to the team. And so now he's aware of the team. He's done enough Zoom calls with them, and it's hard now because I've seen them practice, but talking to the team, he knows who they are. He's watched it. Now he's running with the ball with the foreign players. And so we do throw some stuff that we get through agents if we see someone we like. And then I have a call with him usually every Friday. And he goes over certain things that he's been worried about, whether or foreign players. And we would go through his list, and I would say, Coach, I like this or like this. And sometimes I would push back on certain players that he had initially picked. And then to be some players that he'd be like, Rohan, I really like this guy. We should really sign him. Even though I'm not as big a fan of him. I learned last year with Onwu that if a coach sometimes really has that table for him and is banging the table for him, I got to trust my coach. And so I said, all right, I'm going to back you. And so even today I was going over with Dr. Sharma today about some of the foreign players. And he's like, this player? Why? And I was like, listen, I also wasn't as a big fan, but coach really liked him. I could see how he wants him in the system, but I think we should let coach go. I mean, he's a guy who's, I think, and this is where I might get a headline out of this, but I think he's the best coach in terms of profile in the ISL currently right now. I mean, obviously Sergio Libera, what he's done in the ISL is historic, and we always shouldn't rely on resume in the ISL because we've seen it backfire. But in terms of a profile, I think he is probably the most marquee profile in the ISL, with being just coming out from the national team of South Africa and what he's done in the AFCON with Salah and Liverpool and against the Salah and Nigeria. So so I'm hoping, and I like a majority of the foreign players this year that we're looking at. I think we'll have 2 current internationals coming into the team from pretty decent countries. So I'm hoping that this does work out, and if everything goes through, we're gonna have some really more marquee foreign players than we've had in the past at OFC or Dynamos, except for the 2016 season where we went crazy and had all the other guys. But I think we're gonna have some pretty good not like obviously like we're not gonna get like Yaya Toure or anything like that, but like you're gonna get like the guys that we're looking forward to come into the league, like the guys who can be there for 2-3 years, and you're still saying, wow, I mean, this is good that this guy came as a national team, current international player coming into the team. And so if this all goes through, I'm going to be really excited for this season.
Yeah. Big question I think a lot of people have is, how has the coronavirus pandemic affected the transfer season? On one hand, you can say, of course, the industries have struggled, so there's obviously lesser money to be spent and all that. But on the other hand, you also feel it's an opportunity for India in some ways, because we've generally not relied on, say, big transfer sums. We've signed free agents, or we've not really played with that kind of money, so hopefully our entire ecosystem doesn't get affected so much. What is your take on how the pandemic has sort of played out?
I think it is a mixed bag. I think locally, domestically, I mean, obviously some clubs, including ours, have had some financial difficulties in the sense that we had to see how we could allocate funds to make sure we're getting, good players and try to still keep things afloat within the club. I think the worst of it has gone by now. I'm happy to say at least that. I think in April and May was really the hard part of it, and then by June, July, I mean, we saw a lot of clubs let go of a lot of foreign players. Like Sandesh leaving Kerala, for it was a big shockwave to everybody. I mean, you never would have expected that. But now you're seeing more or less the grassroots come back up again, people signing players, foreign players again. Luckily, what we did is usually we did most of our business in maybe good or bad. We did most of our business in the winter window of last year. So the rule where people's contracts are expiring.
Yeah.
You started making offers. So we did a lot of our heavy lifting there. So when it came to summer, we already were kind of more or less prepared of what we can expect. So we knew our budgets going in and what we're going to do. For foreign players, it was both good and bad. It was good in the sense, in one way, it worked because a lot of clubs have released a lot of foreign players. I mean, not foreign players. A lot of the leagues have released some of their players, like in A-League. Some players are going. Clubs are going insolvent, even in South Africa. As now that I'm having a South African national team, former South African national team coach, I know more of the South African leagues I did before, and some of their clubs they're going insolvent as well. So there are a lot of good players in the market now. Now the other issue is, do they want to come to India? And it's not because of India being a stereotypical, I don't want to go because the league is rubbish. It's because of India having such high cases now. As we saw with, again, Kerala again. I don't like Kerala. Poor Kerala. It's always in the news for this stuff. But like with Osvaldo's not coming back there, it's something like that too. And even for us, it took us a little bit longer for us to sign players because they were kind of waiting and seeing to see what happens in India because they don't want to bring their whole family there, or they don't want to come and risk anything. And they wanted to understand what was the scenario going on with the league, how we're going to do in the bubble, what are the permutations. So this created kind of a waiting game kind of thing. And so that one way that kind of hurt us in one way. But in the end, I feel, I mean, to be honest with you, of the players we initially targeted, I think we only really lost one. The other rest of them, and we're still on the fence with one other player that we're not sure if he's going to come in or not. But of all our players we initially targeted, out of the 6, I think 4 have pretty much are done and dusted. I think 2 officially signed over the weekend. So I think this week we'll hopefully announce it. The quality of players that are available now are a little bit better, but it's just now getting to be more comfortable with India because of unfortunately India having such a high cases. So we have to kind of wait and see on that. But I think you're going to see on the level, I think you're going to see a lot better foreign players. People are still doing business, and even domestically, Bangalore just bought Ajit Kumar, which is a good signing from Chennai City. So you're seeing people coming back normal kind of thing again.
Yeah. Another doubt that I had is that you saw with Sandesh, you saw with Osvaldo. It's also a possibility that this could be one of those seasons where the contract is very essential, right? Because we have to mention many more clauses and so many more conditions. How does it function in a Indian football side? Because I've not really heard about lawyers working full time. Is it necessary to have a lawyer full time, or do you just outsource it to agencies? How does it work with football clubs?
I think so. I mean, so how we do it at OFC is we have hired a legal person, a lawyer, just for the club, just to work on the club. Her name is Yaya Toure. She's been with us since about 2016. She was with us. She was kind of working as a paralegal for Den at the time, and Den Networks. And then she kind of came. We liked her a lot, so she stuck around with us for a while. And she works out of Delhi, and she's kind of working remotely even when we're in Odisha. But she still is. We use her for contracts and stuff like that. And she's been with us for 4 or 5 years. She kind of knows the score. We also luckily having all these clubs have some parent company to rely on. So our parent company in Dubai, we have a couple lawyers there that we usually have them look over this contract stuff. I can tell you honestly though, I have never really had a knock on wood on this that I've ever had to have a real legal issue at my club. Because even with players and stuff like that, because usually it's pretty straightforward. You've had maybe some small things here and there, but nothing really serious. Contracts, you mentioned contract. Yeah, this year we've had to kind of course, there's the federation gives you a template that you use from, and then from there you add your own clauses kind of a little bit to make sure that you are protected a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had to do that because of coronavirus. You're not sure. Like, let's say we have a clause saying, if the airport doesn't let you go out for the season, that some of your country says, they won't let you come out, or India says, hey, you're from whatever country, we won't let you come in. That protects us, and doesn't have to make sure that we don't pay the full salary, even though we've agreed to everything. That is just kind of like a force majeure kind of thing. So you have to structure the contracts in this way, so you don't necessarily be on the hook for it. And even for initially our coach, We were using, kind of using like a small, at the beginning, we didn't know how to structure the payment terms because we weren't sure if the season's going to happen. So we had like a smaller clause, we had different clauses in his contract. And now that everything is kind of coming back normal again, now we can like treat him like a full-time employee kind of thing. So it's stuff like that. You have to structure here and there. And that was like the hard part for this season only. In the past, you want to protect yourself and make sure you have a good contract possible, but usually it's not been something that's too crazy.
And I just wanted to ask, what is the scene with players, especially Indian players? Most of them aren't, maybe they are represented by an agency and stuff, but it's not like really aware of multiple clauses that have been inserted into the contract. And you've seen multiple teams use this also. To take up the names here, but even last summer, we had teams, cutting short their contracts and stuff. So how do players stay safe in this situation? And I know you're on the side, but...
No, because one thing I don't like is I don't want to be unfair to someone, right? I mean, we know we both are in Indian football. We hear all the stories. We know all the stories of what things happen. And unfortunately, especially what I've seen is they get a lot of these kids young, and where maybe the education level isn't high, or the English is not as strong, or they tell them all these things verbally, but in the contract something differently, and they sign these long things, and then they're kind of, I don't want to say indentured servitude, but it's like you're stuck with this contract. And the one thing I try to be as a president of a club is trying to, want to make it the I win, you lose kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, it's a club. It's not supposed to be a punitive thing. It's not supposed to be something where you are suffering. Yes, at the end of the day, we want to have the club's best interest, but the point of having a contract is that you want to have it so it's equal for everybody. You want everybody to come into the table, leaving the table smiling. If you come in, you feel one person's frowning, one person's smiling, it'll translate to the pitch. It'll translate to, and even if it comes the other way around, then you're not as happy. You are trying your way to get rid of that player because of his salary or his way his attitude is. So then it becomes a punitive thing. I think the important thing is to have you to be as transparent. And there are some agents who I feel are good at doing that with their players. There's some agent houses are really like they'll explain. And then they'll talk to the management, and it's very clear, and it's very nobody's is like Riola and that the agent for Pogba, where he's kind of like a conniving kind of guy. There are some bad agents in India, but I think of the major houses of the 5 or 4 major houses of Indian agents, they're usually pretty good. I have never had any problem with them personally. They've usually done a good job with me, and they're usually very transparent. I've never had like a thing where I've said again, "Oh, you screwed me," or they've come to me and said, "You screwed me." And even this with this pandemic, there was a player, I won't name it, but he apparently or something, his club, he had a lower salary, and his other was undercutting him, and his other agent was undercutting his salary to another going around. And I said, even though he agreed to me on terms with the higher salary, the new agent was trying to get him to come on his floor, say, "Hey, he's coming on board with this, and he's now signed to my agency. You can sign him lower if you want." I said, "No, I agreed with him previously with the other agent at a higher price, even though it's 5 lakhs lower. For me, if I made my word, I give my word to someone, even though it is what it is on that." So, it is part of the thing in India, but you try to be as honest as you can because the players do see it. And I think that's why my players typically this year was a good litmus test to see all these retentions staying with me. I think we like to give them a fair shake. And, so I think that's what you have to be. You treat your players like adults and treat them, and you don't want to screw them. You don't want to be necessarily evil. You just want to protect the club, and you don't want to just be just anything else in life. You want to also look out for your interests, but I don't want them to be sad about it later in 2 years. It's like, Rohan, I signed this contract. I hate it, kind of thing. So that's why you be clear with the agents, and if their agents are good and you're transparent on our side of the table, it usually works out.
Yeah. Another point or another thing that we've seen this summer especially is that a lot of long-term contracts being dished out. It's very new for football to see 5-year contracts, 4-year contracts, and a lot of clubs like Kerala, Bangalore, all of them have been doing that.
Yeah.
Is that a positive sign for the country that, okay, these people are in it seriously? Because we've always seen 1-year contracts and players just leaving the club. And all. So what do you make of this? Or also, is this a part of a larger strategy in terms of business? Because you're a young player, you probably are looking for transfer fees now in the future. Is that something you also would like to do with a lot of young players in your squad?
So I'll take it part by part. I think this is the long-term contract. We talked about it last time I spoke to you, was how do we see developments? How do we see KPIs as the league is growing? And I think having these long contracts is an amazing sign that the league is growing. Because I remember in 2016, you couldn't get someone to sign for. It was hard to get someone signed for 3 years, let alone the norm was like you said, one max two. You couldn't get people to sign for 3 years at that time was even unheard of. Now to see even this year when I was even in Jan when I was trying to negotiate some extensions, I went of course 5 years for like Benito or something. But is it just like no, I don't know, 5 years is too long and still got the three. But now you're seeing this coming into play. It's really, really good. And I think this is a great step. And I think hats off to Kerala and ATK Mohammedan. I know Sahal signed his 5-year deal, and I think Subhashish signed for 5 years for ATK Mohammedan. I think that's a good, very, very powerful sign that the league is growing, and there's trust in the clubs, there's trust in the league, and there's trust that you are even from the clubs to the players. Because see, that's what I was talking about last time with you. I was like, you want to create these players who represent your club. You want to create that Rooney story, the Giggs story, the Lampard story, the Gerrard story, the Henry story, that you have this icon of your club. And like, for example, like, let's use Kerala now because we use it for negative, let's use it for positive. Now Sahal could probably be that same level of icon, like how Jhingan was for them, but even more now because he's a local boy. He's been through him now. And for better or for worse, he is the face of Kerala Blasters now. Yeah. And for us, it's kind of like the same thing I would love to do. Like, Jerry's contract's coming up this year. Maybe Jerry might be a 4-year deal guy. Who knows? It depends how things go. And I mean, it's a very powerful thing. I hope more Indian players buy in, and it comes from mutual thing. They have to buy into the club's vision. They got to buy into what you're doing. They got to buy in. You got to buy into the player. You got to say, yeah, this is who my guy is now. I'm putting my chips down that I trust Sahal or Subhashish or Jerry, that this is going to be my guy for the next 5 years. I think he can do it. Going back to your youth thing. So what we've now started this year is most of our foreign players have a total. It's interesting. We have about like a 4+3 or 4+4 with our youth players coming in. So an under 18 team coming in, you sign a contract for 4 years, but if you meet certain KPIs, it automatically extends for another 4 years. So technically we're doing about 7 or 8 year contracts with our under 18 players. So when they come in, but it's only if they meet certain KPIs. I'm not going to keep you there forever if you don't want to, if you're not playing, if you're not getting minutes. So the one thing is you're not getting enough minutes. If you're on the first team by a certain part of time in 3-4 years, then you're free to go. But if you are made to the first team and if you are making minutes, then suddenly that automatically takes them to another 3+4 years. So then you're having these players now, like you do the EPL, or at least they're 23, 24. So these kids come in 17, 18, losing them in their peak 22, 23 years old. Like how. I mean, I shouldn't say this, but how Chennai lost Hendry and Sarv. I'm sure if they could do it again, they would have structured that contract differently so they couldn't go because they were their two gems of their youth program. And now suddenly they're playing for me when they should have been, after all that sacrifice of loaning, getting experience at Arrows, and now kind of thing. So, that's kind of like how now after I saw that, and even with Shubham this year when his contract expired and there were a lot of teams circling, and luckily Shubham was a good guy and he liked coming with us and he signed an extension. But for a minute there, I was worried that I might not have Shubham, that he might go somewhere else. And when I come, he might stay with the OFC. So that's made change our whole contractual policy with our youth team. So that means, if you're coming into our first team, if you're playing minutes, you're going to have if you're playing a certain time, a certain minute allocation by 3-year, 4-year contract, then you're automatically extended to your next 3-4 years, depending on what your contract set up. So actually now we're going to have players who come into our youth system. If they're good, they're going to stay with us for 24, 25. And then by the time in their prime, they're getting that big payday when they're 25 years old, as opposed to paying 2 contracts when they're 22 and then 25. And then you don't know, a 2-year deal here and there. They have the security. And then I have the security. I'm getting the player for that long too. So that way it's a kind of a symbiotic relationship. And we have salary increments, so we make it fair. Of course, not going to get them dirt cheap for so long, but even when they hit 22, there's like an extra percentage increase in salary. So they get that. So it's kind of how we're trying to structure things so it's fair to the player and fair to us. And we also don't want to, lose our players that we spend so much time developing, because that to me is one of the biggest sins you can have. If you see something like how, and to be kind of blunt with it, how Changte went to Chennai, we spent all that time, 3 years with him, and now he's playing for someone else. And even though we have Jerry and Nanda still and all that stuff, it helps ease the pain a little bit. But you don't, you're kind of still frustrated that you spent all that time and effort on one player for him to get shared off with someone else. So that's what we're trying to do, so we prevent that happening. And we have a lot of good under 18 talent at the team. There's Changte's brother and Ruben and Zwala and Akshun and Rashab and all these guys are gonna hopefully become household names soon. And maybe not this year, but in 2 years from now, then they could be really something big. And that's what I'm hoping on.
Absolutely. Another question is that
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned also about how you put a lot of effort into developing a player and then they just leave. So sometimes it also happens that you develop a player, he signs for another club, plays there for 2 years, and then moves to another club. So do you put
Yeah.
some sort of a clause condition where there is that when he moves to another club after his first immediate move, you also get a certain percentage, like you see in Europe, in Germany, and all that, the first club that
We
develops.
haven't yet because honestly, I don't have I don't not have anybody. I had anybody in my club yet to make, like, let's say if this, for example, I'll give you a case here right now. Sami Monk was we spent probably the longest he was in our team for a couple of years. We didn't re-sign him this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We didn't put it in time because the time percent she makes it goes at Trow. I think he's at Trow. I think he went to Trow. His salary is not that, not to be crass, but I don't think his salary is that high to get a percentage. Then it's just like taking, if he was cheap, right? If someone is
Yeah.
making like 1 lakh and you're asking for 50%, like, in the future, I feel like maybe not in the next 2 years, maybe in the third year of this and 2 years later, I think that'll probably be the case, because then you'll see more and more of these players getting better and better now with the allocations that everybody's spending their funds. And if there's no salary, if the salary cap still stays, hopefully as well, that everything stays in that pile, that your people will be investing heavily in their youth programs. And
Yeah.
then there's that case. And I can be candid with you. A lot of the players, except for the really marquee youth names, like maybe Vikram Pratap Singh, are still not making that kind of money that you want to take a percentage of it out of it.
Yeah.
Like, and another thing is, I'm just talking to you off the cuff. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if I could have done that with Chungte. I mean, ideally, you would have liked to have done that, because I'm sure, I know he's getting a lot bigger salary in Chennai than he was offered here. So maybe that would have worked for that. I don't know. I have to check the legality of it. But yeah, I think that's something you can do for
At
the
least,
players
at
that we
least
develop.
for, at least for players who you develop before 18 or something like that, so that
That's the case. I know there's a FIFA. There is a
yeah,
FIFA
there
whole
is a
thing that
rule.
FIFA gives you, and it's
Yeah.
with us too, because I knew that I was playing for the worst case scenario with Shubman again, because Shubman was what scared me this season, really. And luckily it all worked out. That's happy ending to the story. But I was calling a FIFA lawyer. I was like, okay, so if he goes, am I liable for this fee? Because I sent him to Aspire, did all the thing. And they said, yeah, you will be out. You would be able to go. It won't be a lot of money. It would have been like a couple $1,000
Yeah,
a
yeah,
fee
of
here and
course.
there. But you would have been liable to have that if you had signed to another club.
Because what is the onus on, especially these I League teams right now, if they
Yeah.
develop players and if they're not going to get a percentage out of it or something? I sound like a very sad way of looking at football, but I was just wondering,
Yeah, no.
clubs who play a vital role in the development of a player. Sometimes I don't think we give enough, especially in this current
I
age.
think it's. I mean, you know what it is. Honestly, I mean, like I can tell you. I mean, like, for example, let's look at Eiswall, for example. I mean, they had
Yeah.
five players that went to different ISL clubs. I'm not sure they made any money off that, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
Would have been fair if they did. But then you have someone like Rohit in Chennai City. He is. I mean, he's going to transfer. Well, not for me, because I paid for the City at the time, because he was on loan. Gore was on loan. But I'm sure for Ajit they got a decent sum from
Yeah,
his
yeah.
run. I don't know the exact number, but I know we were interested in Ajit at one point. So I know the transfer fee they were asking at the time. I know it was a little bit higher than I would have wanted to pay
Was
for
it?
a left back. So
Yeah, with Nanda and I'm sure.
Nanda, yeah, Nanda was relatively okay. The fee
Yeah.
we had initially had paid just for a loan, and we just bought him
I
out.
think
And
for
it
Suse
wasn't
they got a
that
decent
crazy.
money.
Suse, they got a good
Yeah,
deal. Nanda was still, because Nanda was still a little bit raw. I don't know,
yeah.
he was still good, but he was still raw. The fee wasn't as high, and that time our technical director was really hard with Rohit negotiating him. So it was. So now, I mean, now depends how the club is. If the club is smart, like Chennai City, I'm not saying Eiswell wasn't smart. I'm just saying that Chennai City is probably planning a little business model better, and he got the most bang for the bucks. I think most of the good I League players made it to ISL from his club, Chennai City, and
Like one of my
he got
favorite
value.
one of my favorite clubs in India is Shillong Lajong.
No, you should.
Look,
Oh, Shillong Lajong? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I keep looking at it and I was like, they've produced so many players, but they have not
Yeah.
really been able to like make a lot of money out of it, improve the club infrastructure and so many things. You still go to Shillong, you see the artificial grass are not really up to the mark.
Yeah.
You see, there's a lot of things when you go there, you really feel sad. So that's what I mean, I keep coming back to this question about
I
what can we do to improve the entire system.
I think it has to be because now with the problem with I'll say it's a problem with the ISL. I think I'm just speaking as a devil's advocate now. I'm taking off my president's hat of the ISL. I'm speaking to you as a football fan. If I'm being candid with you, I think because the players now know if they do well in the I League, they can get a contract in the ISL. They're not as keen to sign long-term deals, especially at a club that is maybe not, and not no disrespect to Shillong Lejong or anything, but like this last year they weren't as good as they had been in the past. And same with Iswell even, or even like a couple of northeastern clubs like Trow and all this stuff. But Chennai City, or like at that time when Mohan Bagan was Mohan Bagan, right now East Bengal, you're able to have that kind of, okay, I won't be able to be ISL, but I'll be at least in a good club in the I League, maybe win some trophies, go to the AFC in that way. So I mean, I'm more keen to sign these longer term contracts. I think when you had the temptation of coming to the ISL after 2 years, you're not keen to come in if you do well, like like Radim did, and how he came in 1 year, 2 years, but he left Northeast, went straight to then he went to Goa now. And now maybe this year the story is with Paul or Isaac coming from Isaac coming in. They're getting game time and they're playing well, and suddenly that's a big story. But that shows to these guys that, hey, I should sign these 2 year contracts or whatever little money here or there. But if I come to the ISL, I'm suddenly making a little bit better money, and I'm getting a better quote unquote league. Sorry for anybody who watches this at my DMs that are saying, hey, I League is still better. I'm not trying to be respectful. I'm just saying
yeah,
that, it's the better marquee players there. If Sunil is playing in one league, you kind of typically go with the league that Sunil Chetri is playing, and that's the marquee league. So that's why I think that's the hard part that these clubs won't get the value from. The good thing I would say still, it seems like these players still leave these clubs with a good relationship. They don't leave in a negative way. Like even someone like George, when George left Sporting, the club president took an ad in the newspaper in Goa saying, "Thank you, George. Good luck to Odisha FC," and it was a very nice thing. So it depends how the players do it or how they play it. I think that's the case. I think people are still raw to doing these kind of having these clauses where you pay this, because typically, I mean, yes, it helps. Every lack helps, but I don't think people are as savvy to it yet, and I don't think the amounts are as big to qualify for a lot of these things. So it's obviously money is always a dirty word in football, but we all know it makes it go, it makes it run. So it's hard, but I do think you probably see more and more of these in the next coming years of the ISL League. I would assume these things happen.
Yeah. So last question, and
okay, go ahead.
This is about the ISL itself. Now it's
sure.
slated for November, which hopefully would mean, fingers crossed, that the best, I mean, the peak of the pandemic would be over and things will be better here. But that said, have the All India Football Federation, the organizers, or anyone given you any sort of assurances of what is going to be the plan? Are you going to look at IPL and figure out how they pull it off? What is I mean, it's not an easy thing to implement, especially in a country like India. So what are the plans behind it?
No, I think, I don't know how much I can say publicly about it because with the league keeping it as is, but I can assure you that the league has a good thing in place. Ideally, it's going to be like the NBA, how the NBA has done things in Orlando, just less in Goa. They're being very, very strict about the regulations, the rules of what we can do. Each club will have to have a health officer coming in that the league approves, and everything is picked by the league to make sure that they can control the whole the system, so nobody can come outside the hotel, nobody can come in without knowing who it is. Even the hotel staff will probably be very much tested. So everything, the league is putting this taking it very seriously. I think having Martin coming in as a CEO, it helps in that level, because someone who is going to be more judicial about how he wants things to run in the league, and he's kind of from the top down is seeping down from the whole the league, and the meetings we've had with the league has been very productive. I feel like we're in the right track. I think it will, hopefully, it is going to be weird. It's going to be a very strange season not to have any kind of fans, and I know for me it's a little disappointing because for moving to Odisha, we wanted to build on that momentum we had last year at the end of Kalinga, and we want to spend the summer doing things with the kids, and we want to spend this time right now in Odisha really hyping things up and locally. But it's just a hard kind of thing to do, and everybody's a little bit nervous because we're like, okay, because now everybody will have their own way to you can't just leave the hotel how it is in Orlando in the NBA. You just can't go out to Burger King and come back. And so everybody's like, oh, we're gonna be in a hotel now for 4 months, it's like The Shining. Like, you don't want, and I was saying as a coach, I said, I don't want you to turn to Jack Nicholson on me, and you're sitting in a hotel and you're like looking at the wall and you're twitching, your eyes twitching and kind of thing. And
breaking the door open.
yeah, here's Stuart kind of thing, that he comes in
Yeah.
and scares the hell out of Jerry and Nanda. But like, you know what I mean? So I don't want anything like that to happen. But that's why we're taking it seriously. We're also trying to make sure that everybody comes in safe. Everybody knows the lay of the land. So this year is going to be a really wild card year. So in one way, it makes things chaotic for even the teams who are in it, to see who will survive, who will not. In terms of not looking coronavirus, I should probably rephrase it differently. But who will survive in the tournament, I should say, because now things are a little bit chaotic. Getting used to certain things. We're not playing. Nobody's playing except for Goa on the real home field, but even they don't have advantage because they're not having their fans there. So it's just, and they have a whole new team as well. So it's a very, very unique time to see how things are going to work. So I know the league has a good plan in place. I'm sure the federation has signed off on it already. It's just, kind of crossing our fingers and just hoping at least the product is still, you guys can watch from home and still enjoy it. And trying to create a fan experience.
I'm unhappy that I can't go for the match, of course.
I know. I hope it'd be fun if we could do that virtual thing that they do in the NBA, having the people on Zoom.
Yeah, maybe.
It might be chaotic for India. I don't know if India is ready for that.
Yeah, I don't think we have the bandwidth to pull it off as well.
Yeah, that's true, maybe. But I would like to have some sort of, even like F1, if you watch it.
The big screens.
People maybe kind of something like that, where you have the fans having a sign and saying, "We love you, Odisha," and it'll be good.
Drinking milk.
Drinking milk. Yeah, I saw that. That was a weird one. Just started getting into F1 like this summer, so I'm a slow but eager learner now. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's these things like that. We want to create the same experience, and I mean, honestly, really hard. If all things considered, if I can have things in Odisha, like I would love. This is the year we become a good fan park with the Chakranauts, and I think I mentioned to you like last time, but this is the year we can at least do some stuff if people are allowed to come outside safely and all that stuff, where we can have these kind of at least have these host these events, so you don't feel as distant from the team. And it's very important, especially if you have a new team, that you don't want them to feel isolated, alienated. Because some people didn't even know. I was surprised to see when we posted that we're in Bambalin playing. People were like, "Oh, you moved to Bambalin? Why are you moving 2 years to different clubs again?" I'm like,
"Oh God."
It was because it was a pandemic. We didn't have an option. We did something because we're like, it's because of this, and so we're hoping things like this can happen, where we can do some more things, activations locally, so they don't feel.
Hopefully by November.
I'm hoping. A good thing, Odisha is pretty good. I heard the cases are rising again, but initially the first half they were saying Odisha was one of the states that were doing a good job with it, because the scene did a good job. But now I think I heard it's rising again, so I'm not sure what to hear. Just I'll cross my fingers and hope that
I think
the Russians come with the vaccine and people all be safe.
I mean, we here in Kerala, we celebrate Onam. So when the started, the whole deal was by Onam, hopefully this will be over. But it's just in Onam. So it's a very...
But is there a thing? Because the one thing I'm hearing is that the problem is a lot of people in India are not... Like, it's like the U.S. too, so it's not exclusive to any other country, but I heard it's like the same thing. People are still not wearing the mask, and it's kind of like it's hard to get used to it, especially for like jobs, because people are there's a lot of people are losing jobs, and people who can't afford to lose their jobs are losing jobs, so it makes things a little bit more desperate. So I'm sure that makes things a little more difficult to stop the pandemic spreading, maybe in Kerala too. But no, I hope you all stay safe in Kerala, everywhere.
Same there.
I hope you're staying safe, and you.
I'm staying home.
Keep watching your movies that you have behind you. I mean, I have left my house twice. Unless since March, I've left my house twice.
Wow.
And that was it. I've been
doing a little bit more.
Oh, see, you're good. I one day my sister went out to see one of her friends, and I was like, "Oh, how's it like out there? People still like walking in the streets? Like, is it like it's like I Am Legend that you like kind of coming out
I know what you're saying.
It's like even preseason, we're thinking, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna play against other ISL teams now for preseason? Because we don't want to bring clubs around that you don't know. And ideally, if the GPL can do it, it'd be great. We play against a lot of GPL teams. Helps their league, gets their players exposure, helping our coaches scout them to see who it is. And so it'd be good to play some GPL teams that hopefully if we can do it for preseason.
But that'll mean keeping them also safe in a bubble.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
For at least month of October, when everybody comes down and starting, then at least people can. Because
at least
it'll be hard. I can't imagine seriously two ISL for preseason taking it seriously, because it's going to be like, we don't want to show you our tactics. We don't want to put our best players out there.
Yeah,
It's going to
I
be,
imagine the same. Yeah.
difficult. It'll be very difficult doing that. So you need to have either the I League teams or GPL teams really coming in. I League, I think it's Churchill and who else am I missing from I League?
I
Is that
mean,
it?
I mean, Arrows used to play from there, but I don't know if.
Yeah. I don't know where they're playing this year, so I don't even know.
But you still have all the Sportings and Dempo.
Yeah, I mean, if we do the GPL, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
We can play. I told him we should do a George D'Souza tribute match with the Sporting
Yeah, definitely.
to do it. Since they retired Jenkins' number, I said we should do it. We should do a tribute match.
I was about to say the same thing.
We should do the whole guard of honor for George, and let's do it, man. Let's really hype it up for the social media. Let's make the going something, but let's see.
Amazing.
Things like that. But good, man. That was good. Anything else you got to ask for me?
All good. Thanks so much, Rohan, for talking to us. I know you're always there whenever there is a football conversation around. And
I try. At least it's fun. I always enjoy it. Give my regards to Bharat too.